Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our regular council meeting of Tuesday, July 13th, 2021. Called to order. As always, we are pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We are all treaty people. The peace treaties do bind us all. Just as we get going, it's interesting to note a couple things. One is this is going to probably be our last totally and completely Zoom meeting as when we come back from summer break, which is the other item today. This is our last meeting before we take a few week break. We'll be moving back to in-person meetings come our August 10th meeting. So looking forward to that and looking forward to being able to sit in a room with everybody and do the job we were elected to do. I do have one proclamation this evening. It's National Drowning Prevention Week from July 18th to 24th, 2021. Whereas the mission of the Life-Saving Society of Canada is to prevent drowning throughout this great country, and even one drowning in Alberta is one too many. And whereas most drownings are preventable in a water-smart community and only through water-smart education and a healthy respect for the potential danger that any body of water may present, can we genuinely enjoy the beauty and recreation opportunities offered by these bodies of water. And whereas the Life-Saving Society urges Canadians and residents of Beaumont to supervise children who are in and around the water to refrain from drinking alcoholic beverages while participating in aquatic activities, and to always wear a life jacket when boating. And whereas the Life-Saving Society of Canada has declared July 18th to 24th, 2021 as National Drowning Prevention Week to focus on the drowning problem and the hundreds of lives that could be saved this year. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor John Stewart, do hereby proclaim July 18th to 24th, 2021 as National Drowning Prevention Week in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated this first day of June, 2021. All right, so do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
Thank you, Worship. Administration doesn't have any changes to the current agenda.
Thank you very much. Can I get a member of council willing to move the agenda as presented? Councilor Barnhart.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Of course, my button's sticking tonight. That carries unanimously. Consent agenda. We have two items on tonight's consent agenda. I move that council adopt without debate the regular item 5A, regular council meeting minutes of June 22nd, 2021, and item 11A, CAO's update Q2 quarterly strategic plan as presented in our documents. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor? It carries unanimously. I should have mentioned off the top that we are short. For the members of the public that are watching, Councillor Hendricks and Councillor Munkoff-Swain will not be in attendance this evening, so it'll be the five of us if you're watching who's voting for what. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak in the open forum?
Thank you, Your Worship. We don't have any registrations for this evening.
Thank you very much. Which brings us to item 6A. Item 6A, public hearing on bylaw 1003-21 Lakeview Redistricting Land Use Bylaw Amendment. So at this point, I will declare the public hearing open, and the hearing is being held in pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the Municipal Government Act 2000 as amended. City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to members of council and the public. The purpose of bylaw 1003-21 is to amend bylaw 944-19 Beaumont Land Use Bylaw to redistrict the portion of Lakeview neighborhood. The notice to the public hearing for the bylaw was given in writing to the assessed landowner, the adjacent landowners, the applicant, Leduc County, and school boards and other agencies. The public hearing notice for the bylaw was advertised in the local newspaper on June 25th, 2021 and July 2nd, 2021. Any written submissions received have been included in the public hearing agenda package, and there's nothing to read at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just as a reminder, we haven't done one of these in a while, that all persons giving oral presentations, please, before you start, clearly state your name and keep presentations brief and to the point. and we will have opportunity for questions as presentations end. So first up, I guess, is the Director of Planning and Development, or Mr. Wong and Mr. Rates. Floor is yours.
So good evening, Your Worship, members of council and other attendees of tonight's council meeting. My name is Stephen Rates and I'm here to present Bylaw 1003-21 for public hearing. The draft redistricting map for this application is available on page 13 of the agenda package, and the subject lands for this proposal are directly adjacent to Range Road 241 to the east and Triumph Estates neighborhood to the north. The applicant Select Engineering Limited proposes to redistrict agricultural lands in the Lakeview neighborhood to facilitate the future development of this neighborhood as a residential neighborhood in accordance with the land use concept that is set in place within the Lakeview area structure plan. And so the two districts, the conventional neighborhood district is proposed for the portion of the subject lands where low density residential has been identified, and the integrated neighborhood district is proposed for portions of subject lands where additional density has been, or more mixed residential uses have been identified. Both land uses also allow for recreation, active and recreation passive uses, as well as public utilities. And so thereby allowing for the development of parks or open spaces within the redistricting area. A review period for the application was completed for internal departments, external stakeholders, as well as agencies, area landowners, and the public. This was completed between April and May of 2021, and no major concerns were raised. All comments were collected and shared with the applicant. Administration believes that the applicant has ensured consistency with the city's overall policy framework, and so administration's view is that the redistricting is consistent with the city's overall policy framework as stated, and as well as the land use concept as set out within the Lakeview area structure plan. And so therefore administration supports the adoption of this redistricting bylaw, and we are available to answer questions at this point, and then we'll also be presenting this for second and third reading later on within the meeting, to my understanding, and can answer questions at that point too.
Thank you very much. Do members of council have questions for administration at this time? Oh, seeing none. Thank you very much for your presentation. I appreciate it. Well, as you said before, we'll have one more opportunity as we go to second and third for questions of admin. But at this point, we will ask if the applicant or their designate is here tonight to make a presentation.
Thank you, Worship. We have two individuals that are here. I'll let them into the meeting now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Both of them have been added into the meeting.
Okay, see Mr. Dibben, but not Mr. Shaver. Is he gonna pop on screen, or is it you all by yourself? Oh, there he is. Good to see you. Just as we get going, if you'd like to just state your names really quickly for the record, and then the floor is yours, gentlemen. Whoever wants to present first.
Okay. Hi, my name is Bladen Dibben. I'm a planner with Select Engineering. I will just share my screen here, if that's
Sure.
okay.
Thanks. So I'm Patrick Shaver. I'm with Ability Developments, and we're the developer for this application going forth. And so, as Bladen mentioned, he's our planner on this project. He'll give a brief presentation here, and I'll make a couple comments, and then we're happy to answer any questions if council may have.
Appreciate that.
Okay, well, thank you. We're here to present this redistricting. I didn't hear the city's presentation, but so I don't want to duplicate it too much. But we're here to present on the north half of the south quarter section in this context plan. So the blue area part of the north half of Lakeview ASP. The neighborhood's located south of Triumph and is bordered on the east by Range Road 241. You can see stage 1 is outlined on this plan in red, in the dashed line in red. And this slide, the second slide here, shows the approved area structure plan. Again, the stage 1, which is being proposed, is outlined in red at the north end there. And the zoning that the redistricting we are putting forward, it complies with the ASP. We're redistricting portions to the CN zone, conventional zone, as well as the integrated zone, the IN zone. We also have a subdivision currently in with the city in circulation and awaiting those comments. So eager to get this one through and approved. Now, Patrick has a few words to say.
Sure, thanks, Bladen. And again, Your Worship and all of Council, thank you very much for taking the time this evening. I know we received first reading there a couple of weeks ago, and so now we're here for second and third reading. Just very briefly, as mentioned, Ability Developments, we're the developer of Forest Heights. And with our partnership, as I'll call it, with the City of Beaumont, we completed our last stage last year in terms of the infrastructure, stage 9 in Forest Heights. And we are 100% sold out on all of our lots there. We have very good experience working in Beaumont, and we want to continue to do so. When so this 80-acre parcel came available earlier this year, we ended up purchasing the land and just closed on it a couple months ago. So our intent is to take our expertise, our willingness to develop, and what we hope is our cooperation relationship with the City of Beaumont into a new subdivision. And as Bladen said, this is Lakeview. We wanted to get going on our first stage. It's great that there's an area structure plan in place. So our stage 1's consistent, but about 106 lots. And if we can get through their subdivision, well, the zoning first and then subdivision and engineering drawings, we'd love to start our construction this year. And what it would allow us to do is then look at stage 2 next year. So not to get ahead of ourselves, but there may be some questions from council. So I will just make one comment that the reason we're doing stage 1 the way that it is right now, and the plan that we want to bring forward, we do want to adjust the area structure plan in the future, not to change the land uses, but just make it a little more efficient and more reflective of what the market is, but certainly including multifamily, commercial, and a school site there. So like I said, we hope to get going on our first stage this year if everything works out, and then next year work with the city and everyone else to see what we can do in terms of getting a school site available. So anyways, on that note, again, thank you very much, and happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Patrick. It's good to see you before us tonight. Are there questions from members of council about for the developer? Ooh. Oh, here we go. Councillor Barnhart, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk, followed by Councillor Stout. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And I think this is a question, perhaps it's jogged my memory here, but can you tell me what will be the essential difference between the conventional neighborhood and the integrated neighborhood? Like, what will one have the mixture of the high density and low density and the other doesn't? The other is more more detached homes. Is that the significant difference?
Yes, through you, Mayor. The integrated neighborhood or district has, in this case, has some mix of some lane product and some semi-detached, and then the conventional single family.
So to the general public, it would be the standalone homes would be in the one neighborhood, probably larger, probably more expensive, and the other might be more affordable in the other neighborhoods. Is that one way of looking at it?
Potentially, our subdivision's still in, but yeah, that there is a mix of affordability in there. Definitely the mix of semis and singles within the two zones. But yeah, I don't believe there's any real large product in this area, but it would be a mix of both two products.
Okay. You don't happen to have any pictures with you on your presentation of the product, or is it we're not that far ahead yet, I gather.
No, sorry. Yeah,
Going
we
to
don't
move
have
fast,
any.
but not that fast.
That's correct, through your worship. No, thank you for the question, Councillor Bernhardt. Bladen had said, it does allow us for the lane product semi-detached a little bit smaller. Even our single family attached garages are a little bit smaller on this first stage, but it is something in the diversity of this whole neighborhood that we want to work towards. And certainly as we get to future stages, there'll be larger homes. So if you do think of something like Forest Heights, with some of the areas where we had some larger homes and then some smaller front attached garages, but then we also have the semi-detached and lane product as well. So might mimic something like that here.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I really do appreciate the mix and the affordability aspect of it, because I do think we want to make sure that we address, well, we have an affordable housing strategy, which I'm sure you've seen and you've heard about. And I think that these neighborhoods need to be included in that as well. So appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Very much, Councillor Barnard. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay, Mayor?
Yeah, got you.
Right on. A couple of quick questions, and I'm pretty sure I know the answers to both, but let's let her fly here. The timing on the major collector roadway that comes south through stage one and then hooks back to the west. As part of stage one, do you build out that roadway as far as the red line? And then do you keep building it in subsequent stages, I would suppose? Or does that roadway south to west, does that go right away? Or what does that timing on that roadway look like?
Sure, through your worship. You're talking about the east-west road, are you, or the north-south collector?
No,
road?
the one that's labeled major collector roadway. That comes south through stage one and then whips back west.
Oh, I see. And then all the way down. So yes, our plan with stage one right now is just to get started on stage one. We've been working with the developer to the north, and we've got a very good working relationship with them. They're just doing the kind of their second last stages right now. And next year, their intent is to connect the road to the south. If not, we have an agreement with them that, you know, for next year, that we would make that connection to the north. So certainly the idea would be for us to work with the developer to the north and make that connection. I believe it's 38th Street, that outer ring road or outer ring road. And then again, so this on the screen right now, this area structure plan, we only have the top half, the top 80 acres of it. So not the bottom 80 acres. That's so we don't have any control of that. But as we start to develop, we do want to certainly, number one, make the connection to the north. Number two, make the connection to the east, to the Range Road 241, the work that the city is undertaking right now. So at least there gives a good transportation network and access to this neighborhood here.
You betcha. And then hence the you alluding to the school site earlier, because you move farther south to get to that MR green spot there. So that's good. Yes, thank you. Second question is just around the allocation of the land uses here in stage one. I don't think in stage one there's any provision for a residential commercial split, like a corner store or anything. Is there any allocation for that in stage one, or might that come later in stage two? You know how neighborhoods used to have a corner store. I know that we had chatted about that before in this area here, but I don't know what stage it might pop up in.
Sure. No, thank you, Councillor, and through your worship. No, really good question. Stage one doesn't. Stage one is strictly just the residential, but stage two, so we have, again, based upon you know, what we do as a developer, taking a look, and this is why we want to move forward, if this is successful, with an area structure plan amendment to keep that neighborhood commercial, just relocate it, reallocate it, realign it so that it's more practical in terms of size and access. And again, if we we have people already inquiring both on that and multifamily. So our plan right now, if the market stays relatively decent, is to do stage 2 next year, which would take the collector road, as I kind of mentioned earlier, to the east to 241, service the commercial site, sell the commercial site, service a multifamily site, and then we even take a look at what the scope of the entire thing is, work with council and the school boards and see, is there an appetite for the school as well. So after stage 1, we can have actually quite a decent stage 2 that brings on all kinds of different uses there, commercial, multifamily, and including a school site.
Great, thank you for the answers. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Councillor, hang on, where's my list? Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think you might partly have addressed the question I was going to ask already by answering Councillor Van Newkirk's questions. Essentially, I was just wondering, how is the construction traffic going, the heavy stuff in particular, going to access the site? Because looking at the maps that were provided in the agenda package, 241's closed currently, and the only access from 241 would appear to be what I assume was the farm driveway, which doesn't look very wide. I'm just wondering how you're going to deal with that.
Yeah, again, through your worship, a very good question. Our original discussions, or initial discussions, I should say, with administration is that because there has to retain access to, I think, some properties on 241 on the east side of 241 in the county, that there does have to be access provision. So we'd like to have our construction equipment. And again, to begin with, there wouldn't be a lot of trucks or something, it'd be mobilization of the earthworks. So by the time we get the zoning and subdivision and engineering approved, would probably be later in August that we'd start construction, August, September on the grading, and then start our underground. So we'd work with the city and the city's contractor to make sure that there's an access route off of 241 to avoid and bring in any heavy equipment through the city. Right.
So it'll be coming in from 241 or some connection with 241 and not through the 38th Avenue connection street, I beg your pardon, 38th Street connection that you alluded to earlier.
Yeah, that's correct. And again, like I said, there was the existing of the old farm access right there, that the location of that access is not a big deal. I mean, if there's a ditch there, all we do is build it up with a little, with some clay and stuff so that we can access, whether it's at the north end of the site or the south end or somewhere in between there. So.
Okay, but we are somewhat dependent on you are somewhat dependent on the 241 being reopened then.
Yes, I believe there are provisions, and again, we'd work with the administration if there has to be access through 38th Street, but what we'd prefer, and again, it's not that it's going to be regular traffic. It's not like it's construction of house buildings where you have contractors and sub trades coming in hourly. You're bringing in trusses for the homes and everything like this. You're going to be restricted in the amount. Once the equipment is on site, that's fine, and then the people working on site would probably access off of park on the from coming off 38th Street from the north. So that's just more local traffic.
Thank you. Appreciate the description there.
You're welcome.
Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, gentlemen. A quick clarification, Mr. Schaefer, if you don't mind. Shaver, pardon me. You mentioned earlier in stage 1, 106 lots would be allocated or presently within stage 1. Could you clarify your earlier comments regarding the type of lots that would be in the 106? I believe you said single-family dwellings and possibly some duplex type arrangements, possibly, or with lane access. Could you modify or just clarify your 106 lots that are being developed in stage 1, please?
Sure. Maybe Bladen, if you have our plan, we have a breakdown of our there we've got a subdivision plan right there. And Bladen, maybe you just want to give an idea. You can point on the plan there and say, so again, yes, we have those 3 types of lots: lane product, single family, semi-detached, duplex lots, and as well as the front attached single family lots.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. And I'm assuming from your diagram, no zero lot line type developments at this point?
That is correct. No zero lot lines.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you very much. I'm done, Ms. Mayor Stewart. Thank you. The floor. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you want an approximate number of each type? But
no, that diagram is very helpful thing. I've got a pretty good idea where you're going with that. And I just want to get some clarification on the allocation. That's good enough for today. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Well, that seems to be the end of the speakers list for questions. So at this point, if you have a closing statement, we'll let you make it, and then we will continue on through the public hearing.
No, thank you very much, Your Worship, and all of council again for taking the time. We're, as I said, we like Beaumont. We like developing in Beaumont, so we're excited about this new project right here. And again, one step at a time. If we get our zoning today, we've got to subdivision and drawings, and continue to work with council and administration on coming up with another great neighborhood in Beaumont.
I do appreciate you coming in, Patrick. It looks like it has the potential to be a really great neighborhood, and it's always great to see a great developer bringing projects forward for decision. So thank you very much for coming in today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
City Clerk, do you have any people wishing to speak in favor of the bylaw?
Thank you, Your Worship. We don't have anyone speaking registered to speak in favor of the bylaw.
Those opposed?
Thank you, Your Worship. We don't have any registrations for any wishing to oppose a bylaw.
Any person deeming themselves to be affected or who wishes to be heard?
Thank you, Your Worship. We do not have any registrations.
Yeah, you had to go through the process. Appreciate that. Is there a final concluding statement from admin before we close the public hearing and move to second reading?
We do not have a concluding statement.
Thank you very much. So at this point, we will declare the public hearing closed and move forward to second reading. Mr. Rates.
So hello again, everybody. To Your Worship, members of council, everyone else participating in this council meeting, I'm now here to present second and third reading for bylaw 1003-21. And so as noted on June 22nd, first reading was passed for this bylaw. And so as per the presentation provided during the public hearing, administration is recommending that council give second and third reading for this bylaw. And we are able to answer any questions that council would have at this point. This would conclude our presentation.
Thank you very much. Is there a member of council willing to move second reading of bylaw 1003-21 Lakeview Redistricting, a bylaw to amend bylaw 944-19, our zoning blueprint land use bylaw? Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. So moved.
Questions of admin?
No.
Okay, seeing none. Any debate on the motion?
No.
Seeing none, call the vote. All in favor of second reading? That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move third reading to bylaw 1003-21 Lakeview Redistricting, a bylaw to amend bylaw 944-19, our zoning blueprint land use bylaw? Councillor Danlock.
So move, Your Worship. I won't repeat what you just said. It's quite a mouthful. So move. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Rates, for your presentation this evening. Short, quick, and painless, I hope. Okay, so that concludes item 6A. Brings us item 7A, registered presentation, library annual reports and 2021 updates. Ms. Laura Winton.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will let Laura into the meeting now.
You're on mute.
I swore I was going to do this smoothly this last time that we're doing it on Zoom, but whatever, I tried.
No worries. Anyway, good to see you again. The floor is yours.
Great, I'm just going to share my screen here. Oh. Let's do. got it sharing the wrong side. Hold on here.
I've done that.
Okay, let's try this again. I'm gonna get it. We want this one. And then I can go. Ah, magic. I got it. Okay. So thank you so much for hearing from me again, Council and Mayor. I'm going to be presenting the library's 2020 annual report today, and I'll give you a quick update on what's going on in 2020 so far and what we have that we're looking forward to. So before I begin, I just want to acknowledge that the library is located on Treaty 6 territory in the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 4. All the work we did in 2020, all the work we've done in the past, and all the work and services we provide now take place on Indigenous traditional lands. The library and its staff have a responsibility to work towards reconciliation, and we acknowledge that there is much work to be done, and we commit to doing this work. So I'm here today to present our annual report and to highlight some of the exciting work we did in 2020. You have in your package a print version of our full annual report, so this is really just meant to supplement that and highlight some of the neat things. So 2020 was a pretty unprecedented and difficult year. I feel like people are getting tired of hearing everyone say that, but it is absolutely true. With all the disruption and hardship faced by the community, it was sometimes hard to sort out where to put our energy. And so the library leaned pretty heavily on our mission and turned to our community for direction as we worked to decide what services we would offer and how we wanted to direct our resources. And what we saw was that really more than ever, the community was needing opportunities to connect, which actually worked out really well for us, since connecting with the community, with ideas, with technology, with learning with each other is our mission, and it's what the library does best. So the first thing I wanted to highlight that we did in 2020 was our virtual programming. This was an entirely new area for the library. We'd never done virtual programming before March 2020, but the library really is all about adaptability and agility and meeting needs on the fly as they arise. So we're never afraid to give something new a try. And in fact, we're really always on the lookout for opportunities to take on new challenges. And virtual programming, while it sort of fell in our lap out of necessity when our doors were closed, it turned out to be an amazing opportunity for us to get creative and to really experiment with what we could do. So without being able to see people in person, we really tried it all. We ran the gambit. We did hybrid community-based and online scavenger hunts. We built up a library of pre-recorded children's songs, stories, and rhymes that were available on our Facebook and YouTube channels. We did registered interactive Zoom programs. We did social media challenges, online special events, and workshops. And by the end of the year, we actually had a full digital studio set up in our programming room and a staff that were pretty experienced with video production. And we're making some pretty high quality literacy-focused content for the community. Now that we're at the point where we can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel with COVID-19, we're excited to transition programming back to a primary in-person model, but our learning about virtual programming isn't going to go to waste. We do plan to maintain some of our virtual offerings. And in fact, we learned in 2020 that some programs, for some of our programs, a virtual component was a real asset and hybrid models made a lot of sense. So for example, our online ESL conversation circle allowed residents to travel for work. A lot of our participants will travel for work, and this way they were still able to participate even when they were away. And during the winter months, we heard from seniors and some of our rural program attendees that attending programs during those winter months, getting out of the house and braving those dangerous roads to get to us was kind of tricky. And so they really liked having that option of doing things online. So as we move into the fall and back into more in-person, we are going to be looking at as a team at what the right mix is between online and in-person, and we will likely retain some of that hybrid model. So ultimately, we produced over 400 virtual programs with over 20,000 participants in attendance during 2020. Virtual programming wasn't the only place we innovated and adapted. Once warmer weather hit us, we wanted to see the community in person. So we found a way. We moved our early literacy programs outside, and we saw amazing attendance at our Sunshine Story Times. We had over 800 participants over 3 months in that. We planned monthly special events while the weather held. So we did our annual sidewalk chalk competition, a summer concert on the hill, our Alberta Culture Days, which I know many of you attended, and our Halloween Bootacular. And when fall rolled around, we were one of the first libraries in Alberta to find a way to resume indoor in-person programs. It took some scheduling magic and lots of careful planning, but we brought in another 300 participants to indoor story times during the fall as well. We also launched our Story Walk series, and that encouraged families to get outdoors and visit parks and trails around town. And we've done 5 story walks in total, and we're getting really great feedback on those. So when people think about libraries, I think one of the first thing that comes to mind is borrowing books. It's really what we're known for, and we do it pretty well. But how were we going to make sure the community got the material they needed when they couldn't come into the building to collect it? So we found our answer in curbside service, and by April of 2020, we had a system in place to lend our material safely using a by appointment, zero contact pickup process. And during our 2 2020 closures, we had over 2,300 curbside appointments. During those winter months, my staff would hold up the little picture of Bernie here by our curbside pickup sign and tell me that that's what they looked like all day long in their winter coats running out to cars. We also know that the library is a huge information resource for Beaumont, and we wanted to make sure the community could keep asking us questions, even though they couldn't come into the building. So we were the first regional library system member in the province to institute our online chat service, and we answered over 200 questions via chat in 2020. We have seen a slow but steady increase in e-resource use over the past 5 years, but 2020 saw an absolutely enormous peak in that usage. Without the ability to visit the library and with hesitation pretty high around borrowing public material, even through a curbside model, we were really loud about promoting our digital resources. In particular, we saw huge increased use in our Solero educational help resource. That's a suite of programs for grades 3 to 12 that does homework help and exam prep. So that was a great success. And overall, we saw a 37% increase in e-resource usage as compared to 2019. So we went from about 15,000 downloads in 2019 to over 21,000 in 2020. So really great uptake of that. We did, of course, see physical borrowing go way down. We have this sad looking cliff on our graph here. That really was predictable and inevitable in 2020, given that our building was closed and we had all that hesitation. But what we're really hopeful about is that with continued promotion of those e-resources, we can continue to increase that e-resource usage. It won't just be a blip on our COVID-19 radar, and those physical circulations will pick up, and ultimately we're just going to keep seeing that growth happening. Finally, for 2020, I want to highlight the internal work we did to move Beaumont Library in the direction of equity and inclusion. The library focused on internal reconciliation work in 2020. Our staff is primarily white, and we all come from different experiences and backgrounds. So we wanted to start with ourselves and to ensure that all staff have a base of knowledge around the history of the land we work on, and that we're able to have conversations internally about race reconciliation, equity, and inclusion. So during our first closure, we worked together as a staff to complete the University of Alberta's Indigenous Canada Mooc, and we did weekly discussions of the content. We participated in an Indigenous awareness session and consciousness raising sessions on race. We also signed the Urban Library Council statement on race and social equity, and we've been using that statement and the commitments it makes as a touch point and as a guide as we develop our services and collections. I also want to let you know about a really neat project that we did. We know that it's really crucial for children to see diverse representation in the books they read. And so we completed a diversity audit of our picture book collection in order to identify those representation gaps and to increase our own awareness of our collection makeup and where it might be lacking. Using the results of that work, we did some targeted purchasing for our children's collection in 2020, and we actually made sure that over 50% of the children's purchases that we made in 2020 were directed towards items that showcase diversity, own voices, authors, and illustrators. So we really started to fill the gaps that we saw in that work. We recognize at the library that all of this work, it's not fast and it isn't easy. We recognize that we are in most ways at the beginning, but we are committed to having the difficult conversations, to trying, to failing, and to listening to how we can do and be better as an organization so that the library is a safe, welcoming place for all of Beaumont. And this work will be a focus in our 2022 to 2026 strategic plan. So 2021 has been another challenging year with more closures and more limitations. And like 2020, we haven't let closures or public health restrictions get in the way of connecting with our community. So I just want to take the last few minutes here to highlight some of the initiatives that we have underway in 2021. I won't spend much time on the capital stuff because I spoke to you guys just a month ago about this stuff, but it has been a busy month since last I spoke to you. BB the Biblio Bike is up and running and we're seeing great reception out at the parks every day. We are also about to launch our first public input survey for our library design work, and we're really excited to move into schematic design on that in August. With the addition of our library bike allowing us to do more outdoor programs all around town, we felt there really wasn't a huge rush to move our regular programming back indoors. So we are continuing with virtual programming. We did those all through the first half of 2021, and now through the summer, we're also continuing with virtual programming. We're taking a hybrid approach for the summer. So we're blending that outdoor in-person programming, online videos, and online live programs, and outreach outdoor programming around the city. In the fall, we do anticipate resuming our regular programming schedule with in-house programs. And some of the programming highlights so far this year included our Pride Story Walk. We had a virtual puppet show with Cambridge Puppets, and we just finished our Hunger Games scavenger hunt, which saw a huge response from the community. So that was great. I think one of our most exciting projects for 2021 is our Tech to Go program, and this is a partnership with FCSS Beaumont. This program allows Beaumontonians who don't have access to a computer or internet at their home to borrow a computer and or a Wi-Fi hub on a referral basis from FCSS. So we began lending the internet hotspots in June, and the Chromebook lending will launch by the end of this month. We just had a few issues with our suppliers, but that's going to be underway right away. One of our major projects for the year isn't a public-facing project, but it will ultimately lead to improved services and a return on investment for the community, and that is our organizational review. So the library has been working with an external consultant to complete our organizational review, and this is covering policies, governance, budget, HR, internal processes, and procedures. We will have a final report and recommendations by the end of July, and I'm really excited to start implementing those recommendations so we can streamline our services and really just ensure that we have the right people in the right places doing the right things and ultimately find efficiencies so we can keep doing more with less. We're also about to begin strategic planning work for a new 2022 to 2026 strategic plan, and we'll be working with Strategic Steps Consulting on this. We're excited to consult with the community and with the city and to develop a strategic focus for the next 5 years so that we can ensure that we're directing our resources and energies to meeting the most pressing needs of our community. And finally, and I think most importantly, we have a new community pet. He is an axolotl, also known as a Mexican walking fish, and he needs a name. So if any of you guys have fabulous suggestions for this little dude here, head over to our survey and submit your name suggestion. You could win a prize. Our axolotl friend isn't just a pretty face. He has been helping us out with our summer reading club programs. He joins us for read alouds, for crafts, lots more. We've had tons of kids into the library just to visit with the little guy. So I encourage everybody to swing by and say hi and meet him in person. And that's everything I have for you guys today. I'd be really happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, that's great. That's awesome. My daughter will all be all over going to meet that little guy.
Awesome.
I really do appreciate that you coming in and giving us the updates on 2020 and 2021. It's nice to see that the library has managed to find a way to thrive and do more than survive through the past 16 months. So it's great to see that we're making great strides going forward, and really appreciate the fact that we can look forward to continuing the collaboration as the years come by. So appreciate that. Thank you very much. Members of council, questions or comments? Councillor Barnhart, followed by Councillor Daniluk.
I think I jumped ahead of Councillor Daniluk, Your Worship.
Oh, I just looked up and went left to right on my screen. So
Go right ahead, Kathy. Don't worry. No worries at all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that.
Don't ask my question, okay?
I don't think I will, because I don't really have a question. I just want to say, Laura, Ms. Winton, I think you're doing a fantastic job. You came in at a time when there was, who knew what was going to go on, right? You started just around the same time, if I'm not mistaken, as we went into lockdown. And, you know, I started making a list of all the things I wanted to give you kudos about. The list is getting pretty long. Maybe I'll just hit on a couple of them. One is the bike. And I happened to see it when I was out and about today. And it just makes me smile to see that kind of interaction with the community members, with the kids, with your staff being out and about. I just think that's fantastic on many levels. So big kudos to you and the board for doing that. Bernie Sanders really made me laugh, and your sense of humor helps go a long way, I think, to getting you through this tough time. Maybe it was a sense of necessity is the mother of invention. I don't know, but you seem to have innovation as a kind of a characteristic, and you and your staff. I know that you're not doing this by yourself. You're a team player, but I do think you've been the catalyst that has helped in many, many ways. The last one I'll just mention is using the virtual platforms. In my own work, I've done that quite a bit this past year, and I really do agree with you. I don't think we should go back to not using it ever again, because some of the things that happen virtually seem to be, I don't know, more useful. So some people can connect that way, definitely in the winter. I'm really glad that I don't have to drive everywhere now. I can connect some other way when the weather's really bad. And then sometimes in person is just the way it needs to be. So I totally like that you're keeping with that and doing the hybrid model. I think that goes a long way. Yeah, and the one question I do have, which I don't think is Councillor Danlick's question, you took the slide off with the YouTube address too quickly. I was up to V and I didn't get the rest of it. So either share that in the chat or somewhere, but I would love to connect and see. I'm sure I'll come up with a name for that fish.
Through your worship to Councillor Barnhart, thank you so much. And yeah, I have to give my staff enormous credit. I started on March 9th. I didn't know what I was doing, and the pandemic hit, and they carried me through so much of this, and they have so much energy and so much creativity. So yeah, I think we inspire each other and we love to laugh. So yeah, it's been a great time, and I will pop that link into the chat box so everybody can take a moment and come up with a name for me.
Thanks again.
Councillor Danlick.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart, and I will echo Councillor Barnhart's comments, Laura, on yourself and the library staff and team the last little while. It's been great, and hats off to you guys for sure. I want to thank council as well for having the courage and the wisdom to approve the budget for that library bike. I know if some people didn't like it when we first did it, but we saw the vision the library had for it, and I'm thrilled it's getting such a good response in the community. It was a great decision that council made to give the library the opportunity to go to the people with that bike. And my only question is, how often does that bike actually run? I've seen it a few times, but is there a set schedule? Because I had some people ask me about where does the library bike go? I said, well, you check the library website, but sometimes they ask me personally, and I'd like to get an idea what the schedule is, because I think it's a really great thing the library's doing that, and I'm really glad we made that happen. The library's taking full advantage of it and is promoting itself very nicely. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Oh,
through
ahead.
your worship
Sorry.
to Councillor Danlick, we do have a set schedule. It's out almost every day, twice a day on weekdays. We don't have weekends going yet, just staffing issue, but I can make sure that I send a nice visual of the schedule along to you if you'd like. And you can also check out our website, and our social media has the schedule posted.
That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Stewart. I'll yield the floor. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And once again, yeah, congratulations on thriving. It's been no small task, and we do appreciate all the work that you and your team have put into making the library a place to be in Beaumont. So look forward to further updates in the future, and thanks very much. Okay, so that brings us to item 8A, age-friendly strategy. Ms. Sangster. And Mr. Wong, floor is yours.
Terrific. Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. I'm Emily Sangster. I'm a long-range planner and the project lead for the age-friendly strategy. Strategy has been in progress since late last summer, and I'm here this evening to give an overview of the process and the strategy itself, and to provide an opportunity for questions or comments that you might have before considering the recommendation to adopt the strategy. Specifically, I'll give some background on the rationale for the strategy, provide an overview of our framework and the process for developing it, and summarize the vision, goals, needs, and priority actions before we have time for discussion. So a few words on the rationale. This was an action item in our 2019 Municipal Development Plan, and it aligns with other directional plans and policies, including our social master plan and our affordable housing strategy that's in progress. It also supports direction from the regional growth plan to plan for all communities in the region to develop as complete communities, which means that they meet residents' daily needs by providing convenient access to a wide range of housing and transportation choices, local services, jobs, and community infrastructure. The growth plan also adopts the World Health Organization's definition of age-friendly communities, which was used for this project and which I'll describe a bit more in a moment. There are many recognized benefits of age-friendly planning, and those include improved resident health and community engagement, more business opportunities, and wiser use of public resources in service provision. In particular, the advantages of having a more inclusive and accessible community are not limited to older people, but can also extend to children, young families, people with disabilities, people on lower incomes, and more. So the World Health Organization's framework, which we used for this project for age-friendly communities, was first launched in 2006, and since then it's been adopted by communities worldwide. It's been endorsed by the Public Health Agency of Canada and Alberta Health, and they've produced complementary resources to support communities planning for age-friendliness. The framework, as you may have seen from the report, has 8 community dimensions that highlight the really wide range of things that affect health and well-being for older people. Some of them address kind of quote unquote hard physical infrastructure, such as public spaces and housing. Others address quote unquote soft, but really no less important infrastructure, such as community programs, communication frameworks, and support services. So Beaumont's age-friendly strategy assessed needs and recommended priority actions under each of the 8 dimensions. So just a word on our process as well. The strategy was developed in 2 general stages, the first of which focused on understanding local needs under each community dimension, and the second that focused on developing a strategy to address those needs. We started in summer 2020 with project and engagement planning, and one of our first tasks was to establish a working group of about a dozen members to guide the project. And that comprised representatives from various city departments, as well as from the 50 Plus Club, the Leduc Regional Housing Foundation, the Primary Care Network, the library, Drive Happiness, Cycling Without Age, and some members at large as well. Based on meetings with our working group and on public and stakeholder engagement in the fall, we developed a working draft document that identified key needs under each dimension. This was reviewed and validated by the working group and was then brought to SLT and Committee of the Whole for information and review. After that, the project team sought additional working group input. We did further external research, conducted some additional interviews and discussions with relevant city departments to determine feasibility and coordinate with existing programs and initiatives. Based on that work, we fleshed out the working draft in early 2021 to incorporate actions to address the needs and to incorporate an implementation plan. We brought the draft document back to the working group and other internal reviewers, including SLT, for comment and refinement at that point. We released a final draft for a second round of public engagement in May, seeking residents' thoughts on how effective they thought the actions would be, as well as any other comments that they might have on the strategy. Overall, the actions received generally positive rankings of about 3 or 4 out of 5. And comments from the survey provided a variety of specific suggestions for city programs, but didn't flag new needs that hadn't previously been considered. So at that point, we maintained the overall content of the strategy, made a few minor revisions for clarification and emphasis as needed, and the revised strategy is what we're presenting here this evening. So our key needs and actions. The overall vision and goals of the strategy, as mentioned, were developed in collaboration with the working group and presented to the public for feedback last fall. Our vision is of Beaumont as an age-friendly city where the well-being and full inclusion of older people supports an accessible, healthy, and vibrant community for everyone. So again, the focus is on older adults, but this can have benefits for the community as a whole. The goals set out are more specific aspirations and priorities as they apply to those 8 community dimensions that I noted before. I won't go through each need identified under all these dimensions, but I will note that they are wide-ranging, as we anticipated by the breadth of the World Health Organization framework. They encompassed everything from infrastructure and facilities to programs and services, whether those are managed and influenced by the city or by a range of private, government, and community entities. In developing the strategy, the working group and the project team aim to identify at least one action to respond to each identified need, recognizing that some actions can address more than one need, and that can potentially be under more than one dimension. So that's why some actions appear under several dimensions in section 4 of the document, even if they only appear once in the implementation plan in section 5. For example, developing a more extensive and easy to find web page with resources of interest to older people can help address needs related to social participation, but also communication and information, and community supports and health services. So it appears in 3 places. We also included 2 actions to recognize that many positive things are already in place in the city of Beaumont, and it would be very difficult for this strategy to predict and include every possible opportunity to make the city more age-friendly. So these actions that we've included are, number 1, to maintain and improve upon our existing community strengths, and number 2, to adopt an age-friendly perspective throughout city planning, operations, and other initiatives. So these are there to allow for flexibility to seize opportunities as they're identified or as they arise. Also, because this is a city strategy, the actions focus on what the city's role is, even if other community partners may be involved. This plan doesn't contain actions that the city will be able to evaluate but not able to influence. For instance, recognizing that much of the legislation and many of the requirements that apply to businesses are provincial, the recommendations in the strategy focus on reviewing the city's own design guidelines and developing resources to support local businesses in becoming more accessible. And finally, administration recognizes that the plan contains 25 priority actions, which is a fairly large number. This is partly due to the number of community dimensions and the diversity of needs to be considered and addressed. It's also because, as you can see from the implementation plan, many of the actions involve relatively straightforward short-term initiatives or tweaks to ongoing programs that might be considered quote-unquote low-hanging fruit. So should the age-friendly strategy be adopted this evening, administration is looking forward to continuing to work with community partners to put the strategy into practice. Age-friendly planning relies on multi-sectoral partnerships and on communication. And many members of our project working group have expressed interest in continuing to be involved in implementation and evaluation. We expect that progress reporting will take place every 1 to 2 years, led by long-range planning and FCSS. And so with that, I will thank you very much for your attention and invite any questions or comments regarding the process, the strategy, or the potential implementation.
Thank you very much. Do appreciate it. That's a rather large body of work with a lot of time and effort put into it, so we do appreciate it. So the process we'll follow will be, we'll open it up to questions, then we'll make the motion, discussion on the motion, and then the vote. So questions from members of council. Councillor Van Newkirk, followed by Councillor Barnhart.
Hello, thank you. Lots of reading with that one. It was a good report, and I do like the layout of that report. We've seen 1 or 2 laid out that way already, and I think it makes it easy to read. Councillor Hendricks isn't with us tonight, but often he speaks about the communication side of the age-friendly group in Beaumont. And so I focused in on section 4.7. And in that section, you know, it talks about the things that you'd expect, right? The challenges being that, the residents are indicating they don't get information in a timely manner, find out about things after the fact. There's a wide range of internet access and computer literacy levels, and it says approaches to communication are evolving quickly, and some existing methods preferred by older people, as in print, are being used less often. And then in 4.7.3, the first bullet point is to develop a more extensive webpage. So, when we've just identified that there are challenges with computer literacy, and that that group prefers print, I was curious to see that the first bullet point was to make a better webpage. So, one of the things I might suggest on those priority actions is we need to hone in on some type of an action. And if something's later in the document that I've missed, let me know. But I think one of the priority actions we need to see is some sort of a direct connection with the groups that the seniors belong to, be it church groups, or be it the 50 plus groups, or be it any other places where, the folks who are aging in Beaumont collect and gather. Because if we can start to draw direct connections with those groups and those places, I think we're probably going to gain a little bit more traction. So is there anything around that? I know it says hold an event in partnership with local organizations as part of Seniors Week, but I don't see a bullet point that says we are going to figure out where the aging in Beaumont collect, and we're going to go find them there. Can you speak to that a bit, please?
Certainly, and thank you very much for the question. You're right that there is perhaps a strange juxtaposition there between sort of highlighting the need for non-digital communication, but then also noting that there are seniors that do access information online, and that was one of the points that we did hear during engagement, is that there's a lot of diversity in terms of people's appetite for online or other forms of engagement. The suggestion to reach out directly through community groups is well taken and noted. Another specific recommendation that we have in the plan currently is also a recommendation to have a focus group with seniors, potentially recruited through some of those groups, to probe a little more deeply into ways that might be effective to reach them, whether that winds up being in person, whether that's print, whether there are other ways that we can get messages out, just to get a sense of what is going to get us, the widest communication for the effort that's put in.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss not to get a plug in for a community calendar as well. There seems to be a lot of pieces and places in the community that are missing events, and I'll in fact put a notice of motion tonight that will hope to put some of those pieces together in the future. But if we had a place in the city's electronic coffers where, yes, electronic, I know, that people could go to see what's going on, then you could flash that up, you could put a link to it, you could print it out, you could see what's going on. It could be into the front board and stuff. So I just figured I'd get a plug in for some kind of a community calendar. It seems like there's enough of the reports that we see that say we hear from people that we don't know what's going on. So I think we're to a point where somehow we got to take that feedback and action on it. So anyways, just a plug for that as well. So thank you. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your questions and comments. Councilor Barnhart, followed by Councilor Stowe.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you for the report. Ms. Sangster, I think you're a rock star when it comes to writing strategies. You're doing a great job on these. And the last couple of meetings, we've had a number of strategies coming forward, and I really do appreciate the format. And again, I'm sure there's a team that's been working on this, but I do really appreciate how it's being presented and the amount of work and effort that's gone into it. So the first thing I want to say is that I almost think that naming this an age-friendly strategy is kind of limiting it, because quite honestly, what's in this strategy for me is people friendly. I've often heard it said that when you're making your community accessible to people who are aging, you're also making it accessible for women and men pushing baby carriages and people with disabilities and people in general. And so in many ways, this makes our community safer and more enjoyable for everyone. So I do think it may be seen as low-hanging fruit, but there's a lot of things here that as I think Councillor Van Newkirk is kind of mentioned, that can help everyone, you know, in terms of the work that we're doing. I do have a couple of questions, and I won't go through my whole list because I ended up with a lot of detailed questions, which I know we have time in the future they will be looked at. I guess the one that stood out to me was around the walking audit. And I want to just bring your attention to page 49. Is the big picture of Colonial Park. It's where the purple playground is. I'm not sure what the name of that park actually is. I think it is Colonial Park. And the walking audit seems to be something, the way it's appearing in the document, as that it already exists and we're going to roll it out to more people. Am I right about that, or has it not been developed yet? Because I can't find it. That's the challenge.
Okay. The walking audit was an activity that we had done with members of the working group as part of our first day of activities. And it's essentially, we developed, based on a variety of resources, a checklist of elements of outdoor spaces and buildings and the transportation dimension that can help make a community more age-friendly under those dimensions. And so we undertook a walking audit with that checklist with the working group that day in August. It is one of the appendices. I will just find you exactly which one it is.
Oh, so it's been developed and the plan would be to roll it out then. So it's
Yes.
not already been rolled out and people aren't picking up on it. It hasn't been rolled out yet.
Precisely, yes. So it's Appendix C in the report that provides the findings of the audit that was done with the working group. And through our discussions, one of the recommendations that we had was to make that available to potentially interested citizens, interested community groups, as a way of kind of fostering discussion around accessibility and walkability, potentially finding a way to link it clearly with the Service Beaumont portal, so that if there are issues that are raised, there's a way for residents to report them easily to the city. But to build discussion and awareness that way.
This picture is because I know myself, I've raised the crack down the sidewalk, which you can barely see on the right-hand side of the photo on page, did I give you a page already? You know the one I'm looking at, page 49 of 128, or page 8 of the report?
I think it's A14. There's a picture there.
Page.
The sidewalk.
Page 8 of the, no, page 8.
Page of the report, one moment.
It's hard to see what I'm really focusing on, but it's there. And there's a huge crack down the side of the sidewalk on that park. And I know I've raised it and I've tried doing the Service Beaumont. My point is, if we have identified areas that need to be repaired, are we setting ourselves up for a whole lot of hurt if we don't respond when people say, here's an area? This one, the answer was, it's just not its time yet because it's a newer neighborhood. That's not very comforting to someone who might trip on what's happening there. So again, I just raise it as, if we're going to do the walking audits, which I really love and I'd love to do them, and I've used them in my own past, we need to follow through. So it's the implementation strategy, and the way I read it didn't have that follow through connected. And if we do the audits, we definitely need to follow through, even if we tell people it's going to take a while, but at least get back to them on that. And then one other question, and I'll get off that particular point. And that is around the World Health Organization, the WHO membership. It was mentioned at the very end of the report as something we could do. Is that something the administration can do, or do you need, I don't even know the cost of it. Can you tell us if there's anything you need from council in order to do that?
Certainly. It's not something that was brought forward right at this time, just because there is an application process involved, although there is no membership fee. So the application process requires a letter from the mayor, requires some additional documentation. So we didn't bring it forward at this time, but would consider that as a separate request at a different time.
Okay, so it wouldn't help you at this time to get a motion to that effect?
I wouldn't think so, because we'd still need to prepare the application package.
Okay, fine. Okay, well, I'll stop there. I love a number of the things in here. I think they all have potential to make our community even more accessible to everyone, as I mentioned. And the budget, of course, is going to be telling, because when these items come forward, and my assumption is that the strategy having been done with these implementation actions will mean the administration will bring them forward for the future council to look at and to make decisions on what to include and when. So that's my.
That's right.
Okay, yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Councillor Barnhart, Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Ms. Sangster. I don't really have much in the way of questions. There was a number of comments I wanted to make, and I'll start by a terrific report, very detailed, a lot of great information, a lot of great ideas. It was a good read, and I'm certainly very much in favour of it. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that yet, am I? Because the motion's not on the floor. All right, a number of comments I had. One arising partly, I was also thinking about the difficulties of communications, like Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, and the fact that the group we're primarily concerned with may be less comfortable with internet, or maybe less tech savvy, or for whatever reasons are less likely to engage with that, or at least some of them are. And I'm looking at page 77 of the agenda package, 36 of the report. So in action number 18, where the holder focus group, which I think you alluded to earlier, to explore preferred city communication formats and channels, potentially including partnerships with local community organizations. And then there's reference made to a formal opt-in phone notification program, which I think is a terrific, or at least has the potential to be a terrific idea. That I think it kind of splits the difference between the internet access and the print and postal access, that postal communication, and uses a technology that people are going to be familiar with and more comfortable with. I wanted to commend you for including that, and I'm very interested to see if there's much uptake for that, or if there's scope to do that. Did you want to comment on that at all?
I think you're right that it was included as a way of sort of mediating between, providing an additional resource that's not necessarily print, that's not online, but we did hear from various stakeholders during the process that frequently older people enjoy being able to talk to a person if a person's available, or at least to receive information by phone. And so the phone opt-in is included as a potential idea to be explored further. Certainly we'd have to look into what kinds of services might be available, whether it depends on the number of people that do sign up, whether it could be something that is offered in person or if it's automated. But you're correct that it is intended to provide that additional channel that we heard that many older people prefer.
Great. Yeah, I think I commend you for including it. I think like I said, I think it has great potential, but it depends on a number of factors, of course, so we can't predict the outcome. Okay, the other comment I was looking at was in the what we heard, which was one of the appendixes. I've forgotten which one now. D, I think. So it's on, and a couple of things struck me that kind of the adoption of the strategy then leads us to, and again, I think this has been alluded to earlier, the adoption of the strategy would lead us into addressing some deficiencies that perhaps have already been noted, and that we would then would need funding or support or whatever was necessary. The first, I'm looking at page 108 of the agenda package, results of the engagement, and the very first bullet point from a first working group meeting is provide more affordable, accessible transportation options for non-drivers. And the thing that immediately occurred to me was that part of that, not the whole solution, but a big part of that would be a integrated, fully interconnected trail system that would enable non-vehicular communication, but it would need to be integrated to the extent that public buildings, recreation spaces, shops, restaurants, all need to be accessible through a trail system in order for that to really function in that way. And there are certainly some significant deficiencies there with the difficulty of getting from, let's say, Beaumont Library to the southern edge of the municipality on a trail system. There are lots of gaps which we would then need to address. But I think it's important to note that that does in some way address some of that option. And then the other one I was looking at, again, same page, a little further down, second phase of the project, pedestrian friendly and accessible public spaces, including benches and public washrooms. And I noticed that the report notes that we have only 2 public washrooms in the municipality. So again, I think there's a deficiency in that facility that we would need to address on both of those. But great report. Thank you very much. I look forward to the implementation of this if we do adopt it.
Very much, Councillor Stout. Councillor Danlock, questions?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Stewart. Just a quick question, then just a quick comment as well. Thank you, Ms. Sangster, for the report. A great read, a lot of information. But as one of my fellow councilors mentioned a moment ago, the format that we're going to these reports are very, very well done. I really appreciate how they're laid out. The average person who doesn't know about the topic can read through it, I think, and get a really good feel for how the topic is laid out. They're very well done. Thank you for that format that we're using now and using very consistently. My question is, just on page 6, for example, we talk about, just let me, my cursor moved on me there, the priority action items, 25 priority actions items identified in various contexts, ongoing, short-term, medium-term, and so on. What is the strategy to start incorporating these priorities in the short and long-term coming to council for approval going forward? What's the thought pattern on which of these priorities to tackle first in terms of implementation? Any thoughts given to that, or any suggestion you may have what we can expect coming forward in future years to council on the strategy?
Certainly. So as noted, there were a number of representatives from different city departments on the working group for developing this strategy. So they were part of the process of identifying the needs, identifying gaps, and identifying potential actions in response. So they're aware of the actions that have been identified for various departments in the strategy. And where applicable, they've been noted as the lead departments in the implementation plan. And so based on that, there's a fairly clear structure there for the actions to be incorporated into the budget process at an appropriate time.
Good. Thank you for clarifying that. That was my expectation, but nice to hear it said forward. Thank you very much. My last comment is a quick question, actually. With this age-friendly strategy, just put us ahead of our other municipalities, such as, let's say, Stony Plain or Spruce Grove or Devon or Millet or even Leduc City, for example. Do we have a strategy that they don't have? Or are we sort of coming to the table late in terms of this idea? I think we're kind of getting a little on the cutting edge side of our other municipalities and doing something like this. Are we leading the pack? Are we following the pack with our other municipalities? What's your feeling on that, or your experience with this strategy?
I can't, off the top of my head, I can't recall exactly which municipalities in Alberta do and don't have age-friendly strategies. I know there are some, specifically in larger cities. My thought is that age-friendly planning is comparatively new to Alberta compared to other provinces. I know in British Columbia and Ontario, the provincial government has more explicitly supported developing strategies in those communities. So more communities in those provinces tend to have them. But it's been a little slower to be taken up in Alberta, especially in smaller centers. So we may be ahead there.
Okay, let's just call ourselves leaders, okay? Thanks very much, Ms. Sangster. Thank you, Mayor Stewart. I give the floor.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Seeing no more further requests to speak for questions, ask a member of council to move the recommendation that council adopt the Beaumont age-friendly strategy as presented in attachment 1. Councillor Barnhart.
I would be pleased to make that motion, Your Worship, and I don't have it right in front of me, but I think you said it. We approve the age-friendly strategy and go forward. I love it, and I think that we're set up well. We are leaders, Councillor Danlock, whether we're just in our own mind or wherever, but I think we are definitely in the leading pack. So I think this is a great step forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barnhart. Further discussion on the motion or debate? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. So council has adopted the Beaumont age-friendly strategy. So well done. Appreciate it. Okay, so we don't have too much further to go on the agenda. So we're just gonna plow through. We are now at item 9, bylaws. We took care of the only bylaws we had on the agenda right after the public hearing. Councilor inquiries and reports. Do members of council, we'll go with inquiries followed by reports. Do members of council have questions for administration this evening? Councilor Daniluk, followed by Councilor Barnhart.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. I appreciate that. If administration may be able to provide an answer, if not this evening, perhaps as follow-up. I have a number of citizens from Beaumont reach out to me in the last week or so with phone calls and emails regarding the new three-way stop at the corner of Monteley Drive and 56A Street. I can't recall if we discussed it previously. I went through my past minutes and notes. I couldn't find anything on it. I may have missed it though. Can we just let us know the rationale for that new three-way stop and what the plan is, that intersection going forward? A number of people seem concerned about that intersection. So some clarification or reasoning would be very helpful at this point, or a follow-up if not available this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Daniluk. I think, yeah, we will have to take that one away and get a response back to council on some more specifics related to that three-way stop.
Thank you. That's acceptable this evening. Thank you, Mr. Dollar. I look forward to a response back at the earliest opportunity. Thank you for now.
Councilor Barnhart, followed by Councilor Van Newkirk.
Thank you very much. I have a question, and then if you could, Mayor, come back to me for a mention of kind of a report on ramp. I'd appreciate that.
I can do that, yeah.
Thank you. The question for administration is, I just recently, yesterday, matter of fact, heard from a colleague that works for Western Economic Diversification that there are tourism dollars that are available to municipalities and other dollars for entrepreneurship, economic development rather. And I'm sure that the administration is on top of it, but given how we do depend on provincial and federal dollars to help us get some of the implementation of our strategies going, I just wondered, Mr. Dollar, if you have any assurances that we're staying on top of all of those grants and putting it in the requests to get this as much of those dollars to us as possible. It's an election year, as we all know, whether the election year at the federal level, we think, and apparently the money is available. So I just wondered about that, Mr. Dollar. If you have any comment, I'd appreciate hearing.
Certainly, Councillor Barnhart. We are aware of some of the funding options that are out there. Specifically as it relates to Western Economic Diversification, Mr. Mackin, I know, has had a few conversations with some individuals within that organization and continues to have some conversations. So we are pursuing some options in terms of funding in a variety of different forms. And certainly Western Economic Diversification is one of those avenues that we are exploring.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. I was pretty sure you were, but I didn't want to miss that chance to put in a plug for it. So thank you.
All right, Councilor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Dollar, the calls that I've been receiving here in the last couple of weeks have been pretty diverse, but there's been a little bit of a theme. Folks probably figured out that I've got a passion for things that are green, be it lawns, trees, or weeds. So weeds is the name of the game tonight. There are patches of scentless chamomile on the north, on the south part of the Elan area that are coming together. There's patches of scentless chamomile on the old chateau lot on the hill. And there's a few more places in the community where scentless chamomile, which is a noxious weed in Alberta, needs to be controlled. Just wondering how our weed inspector is doing at getting out and inspecting for weeds, actioning on them, and if any more resources are actually required in this regard to try and get on this. Scentless chamomile is a persistent problem in municipalities, and I was hoping that, as our weed inspector was able to get out in the community, we'd see less and less, but I haven't seen that. So just wondering if you can comment tonight, great. And if not, I would like to hear back on, the actions and abilities of the weed inspector to get done what would need done in the community, or a funding request in the future for more. So any comment tonight, or is that something you might take away?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Van Newkirk. And it probably is another one that we'll have to take away and get some more specific details back to you. I have not heard, very much in terms of the individual's ability to keep up weed inspections or not. Obviously, with the dry weather, whether or not that's having an impact or an influence on his ability to get to some of the spots and the number of spots, I'm not sure. So probably leave it at that for tonight if that's okay, and we'll come back and provide some more details specifically on those questions.
Yeah, you bet. And just of note too, like when folks reach out, I am asking them nicely and directing them to the portal as well to get a pin on the map and write the request in and collect the make it public button at the end so that other folks can view what the concerns have been. So and I will continue to do that because that's a good system, and I think that's the way to do it for these service type requests. So thank you.
Thank you.
Follow up, or you good, Councillor? Okay, Councillor Alec, your hand came back up. You got another question, or are you in the statement queue?
Another question, if I may, Mayor Stewart.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. This is a personal question as opposed to one from a citizen. I do endorse Councilor Newkirk's comment about having our citizens use the portal. I totally agree with that. My personal question revolves around, I noticed in the last week or so, it seems to be a rash of small election type signs advertising businesses in Edmonton, here in Beaumont, to leave Beaumont and come look at come use our service or come use our retail store in Edmonton. There seemed to be a rash the last week or so that I've noticed personally. I'm wondering if we could have a reply back from administration regarding our position on those signs. I know it was mentioned a month or two ago, but I'm not sure. There seems to be a rash of new ones that have sort of popped up recently, and I don't want to be a bad neighbor, but at the same time too, we want to promote our local businesses as opposed to outside our community. So it's a difficult situation, I realize that, but perhaps some feedback from administration on our policy on policing those pop-up signs from outside businesses, outside our municipality boundaries would be appreciated. Thank you very much.
Certainly, Councillor Daniluk, and again, I apologize. It's another question we probably have to come back with some further detail on. I'm just not that familiar enough with the bylaws around the signage to provide too much comment on our ability to control or not control those kinds of signs. So again, it's an area, unless Ms. Darget has some more information, we might have to come back to you with some further detail on.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Daniluk. Just to add to Mr. Dowler's comments, those signs, if they're placed in the municipal boulevard, which is city-owned property, we can have city staff pick them up. They are not permitted to be there. I don't know, we'd have to speak to municipal enforcement about the resources that they have to be able to do this on a proactive basis. But we do encourage people to notify us where these signs are so we can go out and actually do some directed enforcement on it.
Thank you. That's a very helpful answer for now. I do appreciate that. Thank you. I'll yield the floor, Mayor Stewart. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further questions, we'll open it up to statements from members of council. Councillor Barnard.
Thank you, Mayor. And just wanted to make sure that members of council were aware of the RAMP task force has finished its work, and the final draft of the report is now available and will be heading to the EMRB board for approval. I'm going to forget that date. Mayor, you may remember which date.
August 12th, it comes to the board for
I was
approval.
going to say the 15th, but that's my daughter's birthday. I probably shouldn't have said that. But anyway, there you go, August the 12th. And the reason I'm bringing it up is just that I want to make sure that councillors realize that this is going forward. And if there are any questions or you require any further information, the information has been sent out. Short of having a workshop to go through all of the detail, it's pretty difficult to get into the detail at a council meeting or a committee meeting. So I just want to make sure council's aware of that. And I just want to ask as well, Mr. Dowler, if you could ensure that councillors get a copy of that final draft report. I think it would be better coming from the administration than if I were to send it out. I think it should come. And if there are any questions or councillors do want to raise any points, the mayor will be our vote and our spokesperson at the EMRB table. And I think questions could and should be directed to him to bring forward to the board if you have any. So I'll leave it at that. If there's any questions, I'll do my best. But just to say that Beaumont has land that's in priority area, in policy area number 3, which is lands in transition. So our recently annexed land is area that is zoned agricultural, but we can keep it that way until it's ready to be developed. So it's not holding us back from development, but it's keeping it agricultural for as long as we can keep it functioning. So we're in a good place, and I think the region is in a good place to be looking at sustainable agriculture for years to come. So that's it. I just wanted to make sure council was aware we were at that stage now.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Councilor Barnhart. Moving next into the CAO's update, and I know there's a few questions of council has on a couple of projects that we want to ask, but we need to move into a closed session for. So as part of the CAO's update, I'd like to do, if that's okay with you, Mr. Deller, I'd like to do part of it as closed session, but if you have some public comments you'd like to make, then give the floor right now and go from there.
Sure. Thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. Just in terms of a few quick items for the CAO update, starting with the water situation in Beaumont and in surrounding communities. Just recently, we've gone and lifted the Commission's Measure B restrictions in the city. And so what that's meant is specifically related to the spray park. Hours of operations have been adjusted from what they were previously under tighter restrictions to 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And so we are still maintaining odd even watering as a best practice in effect in the city for the time being. What we have found through just looking at some volumes, the spray park is a bit of an issue for us right now. It is a high use. And of course, given the weather, prior to us going into this kind of water ban situation, it was causing us to drop significantly the water levels in the city. So that's why the hours of operation have been adjusted slightly. So all in all, though, fairly good news for us and kind of back to normal for the most part, which is nice to see. And then the only other thing is July 1st, City Hall and the BSRC specifically opened to the public without any restrictions. I know at City Hall, due to some resourcing constraints that we're currently trying to manage, hours of operation have been shifted a little bit in terms of being closed for the lunch hours so that we can give employees a break. But other than that, fully open for the public to come in and see us. So I think that's about it for CAO updates in public. And by all means, if we want to move into closed session, we can do that.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. So I'll move that council move into closed session. And just as a reminder to the public, under section 197.3 of the MGA, council is prohibited from passing a resolution or bylaw during a closed session portion of the meeting. If there's a direction or decision reached, council will revert back to an open meeting to the public, and the direction will be reported in the public minutes. FOIP does outline the items that would allow council to close a meeting, which includes matters where public disclosure could be harmful to third-party business interests, third-party personal privacy, individual or public safety, law enforcement, intergovernmental relations, and economic and or other interests. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor? And that carries unanimously. Members of the public, just so that everybody is aware, there were no decisions nor business arising out of the closed session. It was for information purposes only. Which brings us to item 12, correspondence. There is none this week. Notices of motion. Are there members of council wishing to make a notice of motion this evening? Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yes, thank you. Let me just pull it up here. I'm just going to posted in the chat for everyone. And the notice of motion that I would like to make this evening. Can you hear me, Mayor?
Yeah, I got you. But you're kind of glitching, so I don't know if it's you or me. But.
Perfect. Okay, let me know if you don't hear this. That council direct administration to provide a report that outlines the approaches being considered to create partnerships, help support, or directly offer community events that assist with economic development and build a thriving community. Thank you.
All right, we'll accept that notice of motion. Are any other councilors wishing to make a notice of motion this evening? All right, seeing none, we have no closed session items, any more closed session agenda items, which brings us to the end of our last virtual meeting of 2020, of 2021 and COVID-19. So hopefully we'll be back on August 19th after a small summer break and back in person, back in council chambers. So thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate all the hard work tonight and coming out on this hot day to do a quick council meeting. So without further ado, we'll adjourn the meeting and we'll see you all in August.